Alright, so we have another Scrimba challenge, and in this challenge, we're basically just talking about state and how state works. So we can think of these as different components. And something that's interesting about passing state is that, let's say we declare state in one of these bottom components, and this is also going to be a nested component. So a nested component can symbolize something like a component that, let's say this is a count, and we set the state of the counter or the count going up into a child component. There would be no way to actually pass that data into its sibling. So what we would do is move the state up. And now since the state is here, we can pass data into both of the siblings. But let's say we need state to be shared between this component and this component. We would just have to move state up another level into this top component. So maybe not the best explanation, but let's just continue. So yep, that's just saying, hey, if I need your data from here, there's no way for me to pass it there. So I would first have to pass it to the parent. And now both of the siblings could get that state. So again, if this sibling right here wanted the other sibling state, we'd have to pass it to the parent. And there's libraries like Redux in which he was talking about that allow us to do that, but we're not learning Redux in this. So the way we'd basically do it is just by calling props into these two different state variables or state components. And that's just showing that we would just have to move up and move through props. So this challenge, he basically wants us to get the state of the header.js because there's no way the header.js would be able to read state from body.js. So if we think about it, we can say main is this top one right here. And then header.js and body.js are these two different states here. So we have state set right here. So let's say that's header.js. If this is header.js, there'd be no way to pass the value of state into body.js, which is this other one right here. And instead, we'd have to move the state up a level into our app.js. So to do that, we could just get the state, and then we could move it to our app.js. So now this state is visible, or meaning that we can get this state from both the header and the body. But we'd have to do this through components, of course, or through props, of course. So because this is asking for the user, or because this header component is asking for the user, it's not going to get it anymore because the user is in a different file. So what we could do here is that we can say the current user equals the user state. So the header equals current user as a property. So this is now property on the header component, and it's user. So it's Joe. So now if we go back into our header, we would have to pass in some props. And then instead of saying user, we would say props dot current user. And now we know that our current user is Joe. So now if we go into the body, we could also just pass in props. And let me console.log our props just to show that we will not get anything because there's no props passed. So what we could do here is that we can go ahead and say again, the current user is the user. So now the body has the current user, and so does the header. So that means it's sharing the state from the parent element, and now our two children are able to access it from the parent. So in a good example using this is that state is now up here in the app.js instead of right here, which is header.js. And then now that it's up here, we can give it to the body.js. So now we can go inside of body.js and we can say welcome back. And instead of having the 3 dots, we can say props dot current user. And then now we can say welcome back Joe. So that's basically how these two are now sharing the same state by moving the state up into the parent. And from what I've heard is that this can get really annoying, and that's where libraries like Redux comes in to help us manage state. But for right now, we'll just go ahead and manage it this way because I don't find it too difficult right now. And also, I'm just not very far ahead into the React world, so maybe it will get a lot more complex. But that's pretty much it.